Cordy and I'm a struggling jazz-ish, obviously. So I just wanted to make a video today because I think there's a lot of different ways that seem to be put forward as the way forward to learn jazz, and I'm on that journey myself, and I just wanted to share a thing that I think I should be doing more of, and a thing that I've not seen written down or said too many times, but I think it's a thing that's probably more useful than a lot of other stuff. The main issue that I hear myself when I'm playing jazz is that to me there's maybe some things in there that don't really sound that jazzy, but also when other people hear me play they will say, well, oh, what's that jazzy thing you did there or whatever. So I guess there is a little bit of jazz in there, hopefully, but that's like a concern of mine. So I think it's natural to be self-conscious about certain things, probably, and probably slightly healthy sometimes, so you've got things that you know you want to work on. But I wanted to put forward this idea that I guess basically you have the saying, you are what you eat. And I think my diet, certainly growing up, was a lot of kind of Disney music and a lot of kind of church music, not really much jazz, a lot of kind of rock and a lot of kind of metal. In terms of playing melodically, those are probably the root of my kind of melodic ideas, I would imagine. You know, your ear picks up what you hear around you, I think, or mine does at least, and then your fingers kind of grab ideas that sound good to you, hopefully. That's my sense of where my melodic content comes from. But I guess some of the jazz stuff that I hear is quite different, you know. There is, in terms of jazz melody, when you're playing over like the head of a tune, you get these kind of melodies that to me sound quite familiar, and that's what I kind of like about a load of the jazz tunes. You've got just classic melodies here. These melodies are there and they're quite pretty, but when it comes to the actual solos that you hear over these things, they're not actually made up of that kind of stuff all that often. And I guess a lot of that stuff and the influence of how we hear players solo over it today, if they're in the jazz world, comes from bebop. Bebop, I guess, comes from Charlie Parker, roughly. So what I decided was that I need to feed myself a diet of smaller chunks of kind of bebop language, or you know, you might call it something like that. Personally, I've transcribed a bunch of jazz solos, and I don't really remember too much of them. I think it's probably a chunk of information that's too much. I can remember little chunks from things like Herbie Hancock's Maiden Voyage, or perhaps little bits of All Blues. But in terms of, you know, meaningful things that I can actually draw upon for melodic inspiration, I guess those are like right at the back of my mind potentially somewhere. You know, if I hear the tune being played, I can sing bits of them, but they're not necessarily under my fingers because it's quite a complex amount of stuff to remember. So the thing that I've been doing and getting use out of is just listen to like Charlie Parker Donnelly or Cherokee, or even Bob Reynolds playing Charlie Parker, and listen for the one piece of information you know, at a time that I like the sound of. So this is my version of a lick that I heard Bob Reynolds playing over him practicing Donnelly. because that caught my ear and was like, I thought, well, that sounds like something classic that I would want to play, so I'd like to get control of whatever that thing was. And then I guess one of the things to say is that not every single part of a solo that you hear by Charlie Parker or whoever playing will necessarily be full of ideas that inspire you. Perhaps even no Charlie Parker solo at all will inspire you. So I guess it's important to find a jazz voice that you're connecting with to do this sort of thing. It just so happens that a few phrases every now and then from Charlie Parker make my ear feel a certain way, and so for me it makes sense to kind of break those things down, because I think it sounds like the kind of bebop thing, jazzy thing that I would like to introduce as kind of snippets of melody into my own playing. So that comes from a Bob Reynolds thing, not Charlie Parker, but again it's another player that I like the sound of what he plays. A lot of it to me sounds really classic and really melodic. So the thing that I've been working on, listening to Donna Lee last night, and somewhere towards the end of Charlie's solo he does this. So here's the exercise, I guess. So first of all you learn that in context. So that's like a lick that you could play over the 2-5-1. Probably heard that sort of thing quite a lot. So first of all you would start playing the tune. And figure out that lick's place in the kind of original key. So sort of get control of playing that over the diatonic 2-5-1. Then what I think is a useful thing to do is find another place where that can work in the tune. So this is what I've been working on. So there's another 2-5-1 to the 4. So we are in A flat major, then we go from an E flat minor to an A flat 7 and resolve on the D flat. So I'm going to treat that like a 2-5-1 in D flat major. So we've got that lick working in two places now, right? So then and if some of you know the tune might know that what happens next is like a backdoor 2-5-1, I guess you'd call it. But it's basically pulling a 2-5-1 from another key again. But we're going to have a resolution that's slightly different at the end. So what I suggest is that you could take that lick and then transform it to work in that context as well. So we've already got and then we need something that's going to work over. So to transform that lick and get something that works over here, personally I just use my ear. So I'm going off of the C sharp minor, and we're going to have to resolve ideally onto a chord tone of A flat major, right? So we've got C sharp minor, F sharp, A flat major. So this will work. So we could just, so that's literally what I'm going to be doing every day. It's not hugely labour intensive, and it doesn't necessarily fill me with dread either though. So, you know, to transcribe 64 bars of a Coltrane solo or something like that, realistically, I don't feel like I have the time or motivation to do that every day. And at my age, I don't really want to be playing someone else's solo note for note any longer. I think probably it's a bit late for me to be doing that, to be honest. But what I can do is digest little bits of bebop language and play them, and then I guess the hope is that I'll become what I eat, and then these little bit of melodies that I've heard and I've applied, and then also applied, because I've taken that lick through 3 different places right now, but you know, if I'm working on another tune which goes to a whole bunch of other areas, then I'm going to find new ways to use just that phrase. So maybe picking up one small phrase and doing more with it is a way to get more out of that, if that makes sense. Because I guess what jazz is kind of about is moving through homes, you know, moving through keys. What that really requires, I think, is you to be able to move a melodic idea around keys, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So I guess that will hopefully make my jazz playing more jazzy, right? So, you know, the thing is that I don't want to be playing things that don't really come from jazz through lots of keys, because that doesn't really sound like jazz if you're just playing like scalar fragments through keys. That to me doesn't sound all that jazzy. But if you're moving actual melodic ideas that come from jazz through keys, then maybe you're on a slightly better path. I don't know. So take it slow to start with. It's my alarm. It's the jazz alarm. So where were we? So moving just that one motif through several, you know, shifts of the key change, to me I think sounds like it's going to bring out something different in my playing. I think hopefully that's going to be useful. So I just wanted to share that small kind of idea of how to practice some of this stuff if you're into jazz playing. So if I can just listen to Charlie Parker playing one small little piece of music and move that around the various key centers of a tune, or the various sort of harmonic tricks of a jazz tune, to me that feels like a way that I can practice jazz that makes sense, rather than me just focusing on kind of theoretical stuff, or you know, reading sort of 52-5-1 licks through all 12 keys. To me, I don't think that's something I'm going to retain. But if I play this one small part of music for a long enough time, hopefully that starts to creep into my actual kind of melodic knowledge. So those are my thoughts on this. They're not unique, I think. Maybe Bob Reynolds talks about this sort of stuff as well, you know, why he might take one small phrase and work on that and again and again and again. And he's not necessarily trying to regurgitate it when he's improvising, but that is basically his melodic food. And you are what you eat. And maybe, hopefully, you regurgitate some of that and don't get it all over the guitar. Anyway, so those are just my jazz thoughts, for whatever they're worth. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways to approach this, so this isn't me saying that it's the right thing to do, but this is what I'm doing at the moment, and it's something that I feel like I can hear it already kind of has benefits. If you found anything helpful about this video, you could consider using the Buy Me a Coffee link, but only do that if you actually got something useful out of it and you enjoyed it and you can afford it. If not, don't worry, there's no need to support at all. Liking and subscribing and leaving a comment would also be super appreciated. Thank you for stopping by, and that concludes this jazz ramble.